This is your Week 3 Waiver Wire. I'm Dustin. Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. As always, if you have any questions, go ahead and log into our forums and sign on. Ask them. Our army of experts will be in there to answer them. So let's talk about the must-adds in all leagues. There still hasn't been that one big injury that opens the door for a guy, that you should be using a number one waiver on or paying a lot of money if you're in a fab bidding. But there's still a lot of guys that are definitely worth taking a look at. So let's take a look at the guys must-adds in all leagues. Knowshon Moreno's the first, only on 55% of leagues. Long term, I still do like Ball the most out of there. But Moreno found the end zone a couple times. They trust him, obviously, in that offense. He's got to be owned in more leagues at this point. He's going to get picked up a ton this week. And I would use a decent waiver number on him. I don't know if I'd use the number one waiver. You might want to wait for a guy with a slightly higher upside, but I do like Moreno. Bilal Powell's another guy that I think needs to be owned in all leagues. It's a pretty heavy split between him and Ivory, but Powell's getting the slightly more of the workload, and he found the end zone. I know it's hard to get too excited about any Jets running back, but Powell needs to be owned in more leagues than he is, only on about 40% of leagues right now. Two must-add receivers in all leagues. Eddie Royal's the first one. I'll be the first to admit that I thought his week 1 was a fluke. And now that you factor in what he did week 2, and the fact that Malcolm Floyd is out indefinitely, he could miss a decent amount of time with his injury that he had with his blow to the head. Eddie Royal, I don't know what to think about his 5 touchdowns in the first 2 games, but he should continue to be a decent part of that offense, so you need to pick him up in all leagues just to see what happens. Deandre Hopkins is another guy that I think should be owned in all leagues, only on 50% of leagues right now. Andre Johnson left late in that game, week 2. Hopkins stepped up, had 2 big plays down the stretch. This rookie receiver living up to every bit of the hype and is on an offense that a rookie receiver could actually have value on. So I think he needs to be owned in all leagues at this point. One guy that I think is a must-add in all PPR leagues, and that's Danny Woodhead. He did week 2 what I thought he could be for the Chargers, pretty much the entire year. They're really going to use him as kind of their safety net in the passing game. He had a ton of catches week 2, and I do like him in PPR leagues. He's going to be a guy that you can stash on your bench and maybe plug in during bye weeks as a guy that has a decent upside. Again, only in PPR leagues though, because he's not going to touch the ball enough in the running game and to get in the end zone enough to where I think he has value, or much value in standard leagues. But I do like him in PPR leagues. Let's talk about some people to add in deeper leagues. James Stark's the guy I want to talk about. Amazing week 2. But until we know exactly the extent of the Lacey injury, I'm not calling him a must-adds in all leagues just yet. He's only on 10% of leagues right now, but he looked great week 2. Until we figure out what's going on with Steven Jackson, I think Rodgers and Jason Snelling for Atlanta need to be picked up in more leagues. Currently, Rodgers is only on 25% of leagues, and Snelling's only on 5%. Especially in PPR leagues, I like Snelling just a little bit more. I think actually overall I like Snelling just a little bit more. I know Rodgers got more touches after Jackson went down, but Snelling, got the goal line. He's more involved in the passing game. And I just think Snelling it just has a slightly higher upside. I don't think the Falcons ever intend on giving Rodgers a full workload. He might get 15 touches or so, but I'd rather have Snelling, who's getting involved in the passing game and getting the goal line carries. Let's talk about one other receiver that I want to talk about in deeper leagues, and that's Marlon Brown for Baltimore. He's really getting a decent shot with Jacoby Jones being out, and this young receiver has taken full advantage, found the end zone each of his first 2 games. Until Jones comes back, this guy has a big upside. And I think even after Jones comes back, he could be a big part of that offense, because Jones has always been just a specialty type player. He's never really been able to sustain being a starting receiver. So I think Brown could actually end up holding on to that job even after Jones comes back and Jones goes to kind of return duties and like wide receiver 3 for them or whatever. One tight end I want to talk about, and that's Charles Clay from Miami. I like this as a guy to add in deeper leagues. He's really taking advantage of getting some playing time after the Dustin Keller injury. And the thing that's interesting about Clay is he actually got a goal line carry and scored a touchdown. He scored a rushing touchdown. So I doubt that's going to be too much of a reoccurring theme, but you got to at least pay attention to that. And, he's involved in the passing game, and if he can get a goal line carry here and there, that's definitely interesting. Phillip Rivers is a quarterback I want to talk about. Only on a 45% of leagues right now. Let's not forget it was only a couple years ago when this guy was a top 7 fantasy quarterback. He's starting to look like that quarterback from a few years ago. Obviously with Eddie Royal coming out and playing well. Vincent Brown's going to have to step up and play well. But that offense seems to be clicking right now. So I'm not ruling out Phillip Rivers. I definitely think he could still be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So if you're looking for quarterback depth, go ahead and pick him up. One pick up and play defense for you, and that's Buffalo. They've been one of the surprise defenses so far this year. They did pretty well against the Patriots. They did pretty well against Carolina, and now they got the Jets week 3. They are on the road against the Jets, so I don't like that, but I don't mind Buffalo as a pick up and play defense for week 3. And one guy I want you to keep a real close eye on and maybe pick up in deeper leagues if you're just looking for a bench guy with an upside. That's Ellington for Arizona. Mendenhall is obviously the number 1 running back out there, but Ellington has swooped in and definitely seems to have locked in the backup duties for Mendenhall. And if Mendenhall goes down, this young running back definitely showed some flashes week 2. He's got my attention. He found the end zone. I'm going to see if I can sneak him on my teams and on my bench in some of my teams in deeper leagues. And then one other guy I did want to throw in there real quick, and that's Todman for the Jaguars, only on about 5% of leagues. Just keep a real close eye on the MJD injury. Todman looks to be the guy to own if MJD misses time, but that offense is just so woeful. I really don't know how excited I would even be if I was able to get Todman if MJD was to go down. But, obviously, a starting running back in fantasy is someone you got to pay attention to and grab off the waiver wire if he's out there. So keep an eye on Todman if MJD ends up missing any time. So this is just a portion of the list. To see the full list, get onto the website. And as always, get in those forums if you got any questions.